I have to do this video. So it was a little over 2 weeks ago. This has been talked about by a couple of commentators I know, Michael Knowles and Glenn Beck. But the State Department has a Substack, and there is a great article going here by Samuel Sampson, who's a senior advisor for the Bureau for Democracy, Human Rights, and Labor, DRL. And this article, or Substack, published on May 27th, 2025, is entitled The Need for Civilizational Allies in Europe. And I'm going to read some of this. The close relationship between the United States and Europe transcends geographic proximity and transactional politics. It represents a unique bond forged in common culture, faith, familial ties, mutual assistance in times of strife, and above all, a shared Western civilizational heritage. Our transatlantic partnership is underpinned by a rich Western tradition of natural law, virtue ethics, and national sovereignty. This tradition flows from Athens and Rome, through medieval Christianity to English common law, and ultimately into America's founding documents. Bam. The Declaration's revolutionary assertion that men are, quote, endowed by the Creator with certain unalienable rights, unquote, echoes the thoughts of Aristotle, Thomas Aquinas, and other European heavyweights who recognized that all men possess natural rights that no government can arbitrate or deny. America remains indebted to Europe for this intellectual and cultural legacy. This connection between Europe and the United States is also the reason we speak honestly when we disagree or have concerns, and is why the Trump administration is sounding the alarm in Europe. When Vice President Vance addressed this year's Munich Security Conference, he made the reason clear, stating, quote, "What I worry about is the threat from within, the retreat of Europe." Excuse me. From some of its most fundamental values shared with the United States of America. Okay. In the aftermath of two devastating world wars, European nations sought to prevent future catastrophes by creating supranational structures that would bind nations closer together and allow for more substantial diplomatic and economic engagements. Proponents of this new order, including well-meaning Christian and pro-democracy parties, sought a grand transformation, a world that would transcend the divisiveness of nationality and creed to usher in an era of unprecedented peace by overcoming the anchors of nationhood, culture, and tradition. Global liberalism promised what Francis Fukuyama famously called the end of history, the ultimate innovation of political life. Today, this promise lies in tatters. What endures instead is an aggressive campaign against Western civilization itself. Across Europe, governments have weaponized political institutions against their own citizens and against our shared heritage. Far from strengthening democratic principles, Europe has devolved into a hotbed of digital censorship, mass migration, restrictions on religious freedom, and numerous other assaults on democratic self-governance. These concerning trends have only increased in recent years. In the United Kingdom, police are arresting Christians, such as Adam Smith Connor and Livia Tosiki, excuse me if I'm mispronouncing that, Bolt, for silently praying outside of abortion clinics. In 2023, over 12,000 British citizens were arrested for online posts, including comments critical of migration crisis that authorities deemed to be grossly offensive. In Germany, the government has established elaborate systems to monitor and censor online speech under the guise of combating disinformation and preventing offense. When German citizens express legitimate concerns about the economic and social impacts of globalism or criticize politicians, they risk being fined, labeled as radicals, or even having their homes raided by law enforcement. The European Union's Digital Services Act, billed to protect children from harmful online content, is instead used to silence dissident voices through Orwellian content moderation. Independent regulators now police social media companies, including prominent American platforms like X, and threaten immense fines for non-compliance with their strict speech regulations. This environment also restricts Europe's elections. As recently highlighted by Secretary Rubio, the popular Alternative für Deutschland party was just labeled an extremist organization by German intelligence, which could lead to the party's exclusion from the electoral process. Leading French presidential candidate Marine Le Pen was charged with embezzlement and, departing from standard procedure, immediately banned from running. Restrictions have likewise occurred in Poland and Romania against select political parties or politicians. Simultaneously, Christian nations like Hungary are unjustly labeled as authoritarians and human rights abusers. Come on, Viktor Orban's great. This is a fantastic. Okay. Americans are familiar with these tactics. Indeed, a similar strategy, censorship, demonetization, and bureaucratic weaponization was utilized against President Trump and his supporters. What this reveals is that the global liberal project is not enabling the flourishing of democracy. Rather, it is trampling democracy and Western heritage along with it in the name of a decadent governing class afraid of its own people. I need to stop this. Please go read this. State Department.substack.com P// the need for civilizational allies in Europe. Now, what does this mean? Oh, that last bit there. Okay, so if you've listened to anything I've been saying and pleading with the last, 8 years, Aristotle, Plato, Aristotle, Augustine, Aquinas, Greece and Rome, and post-Rome, right? Reinvigorated Rome. Collapse of paganism, in comes the medievals. The pinnacle was Aquinas. This mentions these people. Shared bond, cultural, not just familial ties, but cultural connections to what Europe is. Europe is a horror show right now. It's being destroyed by this, quote, decadent governing class that's afraid of its own people. This article binds together so many things. Classical, the classical philosophy and theology, natural law theory. Natural law, you can no longer, appeal to natural law, I guess, in court, is what I've been told. I think it was Dr. Craft pointed this out. So, but that's the Constitution. The entire liberal, modernity is all liberal. The liberal project has failed. The liberal project doesn't work. It liberates you from everything to the point you're this atomized individual in a nihilistic vacuum. It disintegrates the polity. It disintegrates teleology. What is the end game here? What is your final purpose as a human being? To be with God, right? And we see, actually, it's not the individual, but it's the family that is the basic political building block. It's more than just one person. And we're so descendant into our subjective miasma here. We've allowed this decadent governing class to disintegrate our polities, to protect itself, in the name of everything the opposite of what it believes and what it's doing. So we're seeing the end of a paradigm. And this is also, so this is binding together classical liberal, the problems of classical liberalism, as opposed to something much more positive, which is the actual idea of a polity, of the common good, of traditional virtue ethics, not consequential ethics, right? And it's binding what's politically going on now with Trump, the Trump administration. What it's actually fighting isn't just for this country. He's reformulating a new political paradigm, going after Canada, Greenland, trying to build up this alliance, right? Map make with disenfranchised power brokers that are no longer part of the Gnostic Luciferian cult that has been that is at the very top of this old New World Order that is disintegrating, and basically everyone's going against them because what we're going to find out, and it's combining, the last thing here is conspiratorial anthropology, because it's talking about the decadent governing class. It's that opulent minority that has put itself into power, and now it's everyone that's disenfranchised is pretty much like, yeah, we're finding out, and you're going to find out soon enough, that we're going to be part of a major depopulation event, a giant cataclysm of proxy wars with nuclear deterrence. They were going to wipe us out. And everyone's like, no, you know what? Screw you guys. We're going to undermine you. And that's what's backing Trump. It's not just military intelligence. It's all these groups that are disenfranchised. It's not that they're angels, but we really don't like this Gnostic Luciferian cult. The decadent governing class. So I hope that makes sense. So what we're doing, we're playing stakes for Western civilization, which has been destroyed. If you look at Europe, it's all run by political migrants. It's been completely decimated because these people have allowed this to happen to protect themselves against us. We are strangely a weird America, a weird transmission belt, although imperfect in some ways, because again, this country is very anti-Catholic. It's very anti-Greco-Roman. It's very pro-Protestant, which is controlled by Freemasonry, and this which is also developed from the Kabbalah, which it's your synagogue of Satan. It's your Luciferian cult, right? Which is, the Constitution's great, but it is a mixed bag, or it's at least been interpreted by men that came out of the Enlightenment, which are obviously not fond of the old paradigm, the old world paradigm. And that's kind of weirdly, because everyone's been disenfranchised, what we're rebuilding. I know I'm kind of talking maybe not super clear, but this is very important. This is great. From the State Department, this is a new mission statement for a new paradigm that's going to determine the next 50 to 100, 150 years. Okay? And it might be something based more on the idea of social awareness, subsidiarity, something that is no longer based in the French Revolution's idea of left and right, but it's left and right from a very modern, heretical, philosophical position. A liberal view that just won't work, that we're done with. The to each his own, the whatever, float your boat, man. No, that crap's gone. That is allowing you to become a slave to your appetites so the power structure can do what it wants. Because everybody does what they want. But if you have privatized interests that are completely destroying the fabric of society, they're poisoning our water, our food. They don't educate us. They indoctrinate us. through these Rousseauian ideas of compulsory education, the reverse Thrasymmechanism, as you can think of it. It's like weaponized mercy. They've been able to do everything, and that's why these riots are just pissing people off out in LA. And they're funded. It's not grassroots. It is contrived. Just wait until more and more of this. It's going to come to a head. This cannot continue. But you're bringing up Aristotle and Aquinas, virtue ethics, not pragmatism. The ends justify the means. Consequential ethics. All this like modern crap that's just nonsense. It's finally going to die, and we're going to get a nice global, yes, sort of. It's like a new globalism, but it's a globalism that's actually globalism, not, private bankers, central bankers doing whatever they want, exploiting, precious metals and commodities from around the world, or in its other extreme form, and its Hegelian dialectic, these like socialistic authoritarian regimes that seize the means of production. We are going to hopefully see complete transparency of the industrial military complex, right? That Eisenhower warned us against. This is good stuff. Please read this article. Be versed in not just your Bible and your catechism. Catechism's great, by the way. Everyone should read. The Catechism of Trent is wonderful. But even the one that was put together by Ratzinger and Wojtyła, right? Pope John Paul II and Pope Benedict. Read your catechism, but also, and of course your founding fathers' documents. It's all about reinterpreting it. Reinterpret our Constitution the correct way. The classical definition of liberty. Not doing whatever you want, but doing what you ought, right? You were designed for a specific end. If you don't do what's best for you, then you really are just a slave. And to these decadent governing class, what Madison called the opulent minority, you're just a useless eater, right? So this is interesting. This is good. God bless. Hopefully something I said made sense. This is one of the most important videos. I don't think people understand the magnitude of this essentially mission statement. Please do your homework.